Oh, we are all set now to begin our session. On our webinar now, we have the one, the only Michael Quentin Gionta. Quentin is not his middle name. I think I said that a couple of years ago. Mike is someone that I've gone way back with now since my first days in training. You could see his bio, of course, on your screen. He is the founder, not only a recruiter in a firm, but the founder of the recruiteru.com. And he's a great speaker and training and has got tons of material. And his audience is, certainly everyone on this call, but he does a ton with the small business owners, the independent owner operators, etc. So he's just been doing this forever. He's been, constantly one of the top-rated producers, and his firm has always been one of the highest rating and moving. And Mike's just a really, really fun guy. I participate in his teleconference that he has for owners and managers every spring, and that's just a great, great event. And Mike is going to be talking to us basically about how to increase your marketing, but this time is without cold calling. So, you'll see we're going to end the summit on how to cold call. And Mike just said, listen, without having to deal with all this cold calling and these voicemails, how are you going to get fees and top fees and or retainers and get all of your business? So let me now introduce you to and turn it over to one Mike Gionta. Mike, floor's yours.
I do like Quentin. I think that's
Quentin
kind of
does
like
work.
regal. Quentin, even for an Italian guy, I think Quentin does work, and I appreciate you coming up with that.
Doesn't work
And
for
yes,
myself being Jewish.
we we will be March 2014 will be, and I'm hoping you're going to be back with me again. You're one of the founding speaker members. This will be our 5th year in a row doing the telesummit. So I always look forward to that, and I'm always having Neil is, when he as soon as he starts talking, a lot of times is you just kind of squint a little and you hope for the best. But it's always entertaining.
Ouch. No, well, I'm going to say this.
Entertaining.
We did get feedback 2 years ago, and everyone's noticed. I am pretty much shutting up during everyone's presentations, maybe adding in one or two little things, but we'll not have the back and forth late night show. Some people said they loved it, they liked the training, but if they want to have banter, they'll turn on Conan O'Brien or Jay Leno or whatever. And you know what? Fair enough. Fair
Okay.
enough.
All right. So what I'm going to talk about today, and this is a tool in a toolbox. It is not. This is not something where you drop everything else. It's a strategy, and I'll kind of tell you guys the story of how I discovered it and kind of came across it. Back in 2006, 2007, I began doing a bunch of training on how to become a business coach, and began the sales process of getting out of my recruiting business and completed that sale in 2010. But one of the things I began learning a ton of stuff outside of the recruiting industry, because every time we go to conferences and we show up at like this, there's a lot of really smart people, but we're first or second cousins and transmitting the same DNA back and forth to each other all the time on, marketing, recruiting, business development, etc. And the nice thing about actually studying business coaching and consulting was there's slightly different ways they market their businesses. And one of them is the technique I'm going to talk about today on how to get clients without cold calling. And one of the things, back in 2008, I really began, some of you might be getting my weekly kind of tip sheet. It's not a newsletter, by the way. Just if you're going to do that, if I'm going to say that a couple of times, if you're going to email stuff, don't call it a newsletter. Nobody wants a newsletter. No one cares what's going on in your firm. They do want to be educated, however, on leading edge material going on in their space. So I began publishing articles on how to raise fees, how to hire recruiters, how to hold people accountable, how to keep yourself motivated, all the stuff that would go on day to day in kind of a recruiting business. And, and again, I invested a ton of money in somebody to teach me how to do that. And what happened is I began getting voicemails and emails. Hey, Mike, I've been reading your articles. Can you help me? Here's my situation. And most of, if not all of my clients early on came from that progression of email marketing. As a matter of fact, to this day, I haven't cold called for one coaching client. Some of them I've met speaking, so they don't all come from using. Some of them I've met, I did have a couple friends that hired me, but most people that know me really well probably would never hire me. It's the illusion, the people that don't know me. No, I'm kidding. Some of the people, but most of the people I've gotten came from this progression of content marketing I'm about to share with you over the next 45 minutes or so. So pay attention for you ADD people out there kind of watching your screen. Maybe have my PowerPoint minimized, check in your email, invest, be present, invest the 45 minutes, because I'm going to go through some things pretty quick, and I'm going to kind of walk you through, one, why it's important, two, step-by-step how to put it in place, what the resources you can use are, and three, for those that want a little bit more help at the end, I'm going to offer a solution for that too, and that's completely optional, but I'm going to tell you what you need to do to get this thing launched pretty inexpensively. Then this worked so well in my coaching business, we began putting it, because in the last couple of years I was still in my recruiting business, a couple of recruiters that I taught this to put this in place and started sending out like hiring tip sheets and how to interview better and things like that, topics like that. And we started getting call-in and emailed in job orders. And when I say emailed in job orders, I didn't mean somebody sent us a rec and said, fill this. They said, hey, replied to one of our articles, and they said, do you guys place, controllers? Do you guys place this kind of sales rep in these territories? Do you work this geography? And we began getting openings because of our consistency in setting out great content. The other thing we noticed was, and again, this takes a little bit of time, so it's an investment. You have to put a few months into this, meaning, and I'll share that with you in a minute, being consistent out there, putting out great content into the marketplace. We noticed our return call rates went up. We noticed people said, hey, you're the guy, this was my recruiters, by the way, you're the guy who publishes the articles I get every week. And we began noticing that they were even getting forwarded, that's a word, from CEOs to their management team. So I want you to kind of imagine coming into the office with voicemails or emails once in a while saying, hey, I've been reading your articles. Can you help me fill this kind of position? It happens. So first, why education content-based marketing? It's a medium to long-term strategy, meaning if you write content, which I'm talking as like articles, and again, I'll show you how to do this very simply, very short articles, you are not going to hit send to your client base and have 37 job orders on the first email. You probably get nothing. Now, it happens that sometimes you get stuff from the beginning, but I just want to set and manage your expectations that this is a medium to long-term strategy. One, you begin to build credibility as an expert over time. And expect to execute on this for 2 to 3 months with maybe some very minor results, but excellent results after that period. Because just like any form of marketing or advertising, there has to be a campaign. It has to be consistent. It has to build top-of-mind awareness. Next, the other benefit is you're going to brand yourself as a market niche expert. Based on your own experience, let me ask you, how do you perceive those people who write and are published elsewhere, meaning maybe not necessarily even a book, but if you saw somebody consistently publishing articles, whether online or in magazines, are you more or less likely to do business with them? Considering 99.9% of our industry doesn't do this, it's going to give you a leg up just from that perspective. Based on your opinions, advice, and insight, you're going to be perceived significantly different than your competitors. And done consistently, this is going to lead to call-in searches and candidates. And like I said before, your emails are going to get forwarded to other hiring managers. We've noticed it. I've noticed it with my own recruiters, and I've noticed it with my clients that are doing this. So we've tested this. So it's not well, this won't work in my space. Well, I guess if your people can't read, it won't work in your space.
Well, but let's be honest, right? The 90% of the people on the summit are from your lists and my lists and from our quote unquote newsletters, right? From our value added content. So it works by definition.
Right. If you're here, me and Neil didn't do any mail, physical mail. We didn't cold call your office. You showed up because of you kept opening our stuff because every once in a while we'll promote something like this, but then there's great stuff in between where we market. So that, there's some balance, and I'm going to show you how to actually, great point, Neil, how to kind of balance great content and some promotion. So the first benefit, not the number one, benefits of publishing high-value content. Content marketing lets you grow your prospect list to market to over and over again. And this is a concept of marketing one-to-many versus one-to-one. While we still continue to need to market one-to-one, whether that's, whatever method you're using to stay in touch with clients, to call them, to take assignments, you don't stop that. So please, especially if you're a recruiter, don't run off the phone. Mike said, all I have to do is send out articles and I'll bill $500,000 a year. No. But let's say, for example, you call somebody and today, and then, they say, we don't need you. Thanks, geez, Mike, I appreciate the call. I think I can use you down the road. We don't need you right now. We just filled the position. Very common call. Well, you might call that person in 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. If you have, maybe, if you have no system, randomly in 4 or 5 months. Even if it was a good call, unless something happens in the next 48 hours, you're going to be forgotten. Doing this allows you to stay in touch with that prospect in between phone calls. So that name, like if it was me, Mike Gionta, comes up 3-4 times a month. And now you are visible versus invisible. And think about it. A month from now, you kind of stayed visible with them. They kind of latched on to that. It was a decent phone call anyway, and somebody walks in and resigns. An unanticipated opening that they have, and they go, who's that guy? I've been getting his stuff. That's kind of, it might not be top of mind, but they're going to go, I've been getting his stuff. They might go to their inbox and send you back an email. In using your own content marketing, I'm going to show you how to keep this in front of your prospects several times a month. My recommendation is 2, really 3, 2 minimum. You can use all your new LinkedIn connections for this. Contacts you've met at trade shows, referrals, people you've targeted, anyone you really have on your call list that you've done some form of, had a conversation with or something like that, done some form of business with. Number 2, content marketing is a very effective way to promote your search capabilities. Instead of saying how great you are, you show how great you are by sharing your expertise with your prospects. You're giving them a sample of who you are several times a month when you do it the right way. Now, some ideas of things you can market. You can market a case study on successful placements and include that, maybe some lessons you learned that you share, things you did to save the placement that they can too. And to keep confidentiality, you don't have to say it was ABC Company or Joe Blow, accountant. You can just say there was a recent situation kind of in our firm where we noticed a client went dark, and here's what happened, and the candidate began to lose enthusiasm, and here's how we put it together. So the main lesson here, if you're reading this, is how to stay in touch with your candidate between the last interview and the offer stage. And be careful here, because you don't want to be so obviously self-promoting that they go, this is just a promo. It's here's steps, here's what happens emotionally with that candidate. And you can think of probably dozens of situations you can write about just from case studies. You can cover your scope of work by as part of your promotion piece, meaning you wouldn't do this every week, but one of your emails could just be XYZ search firm is pleased to announce that Joe Blow has just joined XYZ Technology as their new VP of Sales. Congratulations to Joe on your new role and taking over that team over there in San Francisco, California. The model for this that I kind of stole intellectually, just to give credit where credit's due. A lot of the technology magazines, when a venture capital company funds, finds a next round of funding, they'll say XYZ Venture Capital is pleased to have seeded $11 million in the B round of funding to help company X technology grow. And what they're really saying when you read between the lines is, here's what we do. So I used an example of a VP of sales. That doesn't mean you can't use a person like a sales rep or accountant or an engineer, because it shows your scope of work. Now, if you do this, please, 1, wait till a couple weeks after the candidate started. 2, get the permission from the candidate and the employer. We've never really had any resistance um, um, from our candidates clients. As a matter of fact, they're flattered. And for you old school 1978 recruiters out there going, I don't want the world to know who I make placements with. You know what? The world's not on 3x5 cards anymore. All the information about everybody pays fees. Everybody knows who the candidates are. And if you're that vulnerable, that a guy you placed 2 weeks ago is susceptible to being recruited, and I have no examples of this yet, so we've been doing this for a while, then yeah, maybe you don't promote it. But for the most part, this is a nice way to say, in a very subtle way, here's what we do, keeping that portrait of what you do in front of your prospect in between the times you call them. Number 3, publishing high-value content positions you as an expert in your niche. I would find out and get the editors of your trade journals. I'd put them on the list. Trade show organizers, to keep in front of, kind of your industry press who you are, because, you might get referred that way. Speaking invitations, especially on the trade show side, what I've learned is most trade publications and most trade shows are dying for content, meaning if you started publishing stuff like this and you reached out to an editor of a trade journal and you said, hey, do you publish non-solicited content? A lot of them are going to say yes. You're probably not going to get paid. That's not your objective. But imagine if you could get into your trade publication 2 or 3 times a year with a strategic article on how to attract great talent or some version of that, and then copy that as a PDF and send it as an attachment, in some of your proposals. The perception of the market, imagine what the perception of the marketplace is going to be. This guy was published in our trade journal, and they assume your trade journal vetted you, and they probably did a little bit, but most people are intimidated by that because they think it's almost impossible. You just have to, with the budgets with all these kind of trade journals, they're all cutting back on staff, and they're looking for something valuable for their readers. So that's an opportunity to recycle some of this content you're publishing, send it off to your trade journal too. Part of this also positioning you as an expert in your niche, you get kind of quote unquote what I call author status. YouTube actually did a study, and I don't know when, but I heard this a couple of years ago. When you're seen in video, you achieve similar stature and celebrity effect, similar to being seen on television. And kind of that star power. And kind of as I stated earlier, what's your perception of someone if you meet them and you've read their published material? You're going to kind of get that quote unquote stardust, might be too big a term, but there's going to be a strong differentiation between you and everyone else who just calls and says, hey, checking in, got any openings I can help you fill? Number 4, content marketing is a perfect way to stay in touch with your clients and prospects on a regular basis. Sales 101, this is, and you guys probably know this if you've been trying to get clients, most prospects take 7 to 10 contacts with you before they buy. Think about it. Most of your prospects don't need you when you first call them. Most of these, even with your best brochure and website, won't call you if a position opens up a week or a month later. You need to stay in front of them between calls. There's, it's rare that any one of us is that memorable after the first phone call, 60 days later, that somebody actually picks up the phone and calls you and says, hey, I remember talking to you. I mean, I can actually, if I close my eyes, remember some of those in my 20 years, working as a recruiter. And aren't you kind of shocked when that happens? So I think we can all agree it doesn't happen often enough for it to be memorable. And I'm not saying people won't call you with call-in job orders that you've done business with. I'm talking about that cold call that actually went kind of well, but they didn't have a need at the time. More than likely, without a strong follow-up system, you're going to be forgotten. Stay in front of your prospects between calls. After you call them, you stay in touch with them by sending them value-added consultative information that they not only open, but honestly look forward to. And you might say, oh, well, Mike, now that's a reach. Look forward to. Early on in probably a year or two in 2010, 2011, I got involved as I was transitioning out of my firm. Little confession here amongst all us friends. I became a little less than consistent with my article publishing. Sometimes I went 4 or 6 weeks without publishing something. And Not that I got thousands of emails, but I got a couple dozen emails over time going, am I still on your list? I just kind of noticing I haven't received anything in a while. People, and these are people I didn't know. People actually will look forward to it. And it must be consistent. You can't just do this, send one month, skip a quarter. And monthly's almost, I'm going to get into this a little bit later, monthly's probably not enough. Better than nothing, probably not enough to achieve the objectives we've talked about so far. And that represents a key marketing principle called reach and frequency. And bluntly, it's really not your prospect's job to remember you are still alive and a recruiter that looks and sounds like everyone else. They simply wait a couple of days, and the next recruiter, number 378, because they think we're all the same, is going to call them. Imagine you're the prospect and enter the conversation in their mind. If you received a great verbal presentation, then combined with material that positions you in a similar vein as an expert and they begin getting that material consistently versus someone who sounds like everyone else that there is no follow-up system with, who do you think is going to get the work and on what kind of terms? So what we've noticed is when you do this, not only will you get probably more stuff, call-in job orders, you probably get higher fees and a little bit more respect because more is expected of you. Now, there's a burden put on you there that you actually have to, with all this stuff, if we're setting you up like this, you need to deliver too, but I'm going to have that go unsaid. 5, article marketing and content marketing allows you to effortlessly spread the word about your business. As I said before, articles are routinely forwarded to other managers, and we actually find that my clients that are doing this, and I get this even as a coach, get requests to be added to the list because something got forwarded it to them. I've had a bunch of, so many of these I can't quantify them. When one of my clients calls or somebody doing this calls and they say, oh yeah, our CEO forwarded that article last month. I saw you wrote on this, or probably not last month, it was probably more recent. And it, greases the wheel for that conversation. What it really means is they remember you. Next, articles are saved and replied to weeks or months later. How many stored voicemails do you guys have from cold calls? Probably not a lot. You may have some from somebody that's really important and you haven't deleted it yet because you tuck them away there. But more than likely, if it's not a memorable call or a voicemail, you probably hit and delete to create space. What we found is my clients that do this often will get a reply from an email sent a few months ago. So an email may have been sent 2-3 months ago, and you get a reply back and it says, hey, do you guys do this? And you're looking at the article. Even though they've got subsequent articles, what that means is they like the article and they put it in a folder. Think about it. If you guys get stuff you like, you might have, in your Outlook or whatever, you might have a folder system where you save stuff that you can go back to. And what people have told me when I've met them at shows is when they get my articles, because depending on when I send them, and they have a little folder and they can go back not only with my stuff, but with other stuff they get, and maybe Friday afternoon, Monday morning, or the weekends is when they play catch up with that stuff. That's the value of doing this stuff. If it's valuable, it's actually set aside. We found actually a client, and I sent this out, and on the first email, or maybe the second email, I got an email back for something that was slightly outside of his niche, and he was telling me about it, and I said, hey, that's great. And he goes, I asked him if he was going to work. He goes, yeah, it's close enough to what I do, and it probably is a great opportunity to expand my desk. Ends up making a $20,000 placement and has it as a desk builder because this hiring manager somehow errantly got on his content marketing list. And again, that doesn't happen a lot, second email. I just want to show you kind of the opportunities if you choose to implement this for yourself. 6, content marketing is an ideal way to capture the email address of visitors to your website. So if you look at kind of like every other recruiter's website out there, maybe when you established your own, you began looking at other recruiters' websites, and what do you see? You see, a guy could be based somewhere in farm country, USA, and that's even out by me. I live in kind of a rural section of Connecticut. It could be in the Midwest, in Iowa, outside of a city. What do we see? We see a kind of granite-covered conference table and a skyscraper with a multi-ethnic team strategizing and shaking hands. Something most of these firms are buying stock photos. So when you're the prospect and you're trying to get differentiation, site to site, and here's how we search, and here's our search and selection process, and here's this guy and his degree, and this gal and her accomplishments in 25 years. It's all professional. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just all the same. Now, one of the things you can do is you can actually have kind of a special report. You can, a couple of these articles that you've actually sent out, you can just combine into quote unquote what I call a white paper, meaning take a bunch of articles, make them a couple chapters, and put it in PDF and call it a white paper or a special report. And very inexpensively, you can create, on your website, you can have an opt-in page. Neil does this, I do this. Neil, you do it at the dynamicsale.com, and I do it at the recruiteru.com, and mine is an audio series that you get. So you can look at those pages, and you can get examples and templates where if you show up and enter your name and email address, and they get the special report, now somebody's kind of raised their hand, and they're screaming at you that they visited your site. Maybe they found you through SEO or LinkedIn or whatever, somebody you haven't stayed in touch with. I was talking to David Cerns of Haley Marketing, and they've studied this. Over 98% of people that visit your recruiting website leave without doing anything, and most of those never come back. So with something like this, where you can come up with a special report where if they enter their name and email address, and you can do this, I don't have time to get into it today, but with autoresponders and things like that, as soon as they enter their name and email, boom, the special report is delivered. Then you've captured their contact information forever to market to them over and over and over again.
Right. And Mike, not only do they just scan and leave, but if you have stuff posted on there, like your salary guides or your how-to guides or all those cool things that you already have, most of you, all people then do is download all 8 of them and never come back. So, you don't want to do that.
Right, exactly.
And what you should do when you're on this call is go to the recruiteru.com right now while you're listening. Just minimize it. Go in and enter your email address. Yes, we're capturing them, but you can see the great content and how this thing works. And also go to the dynamicsale.com. You've seen some, ads for that, but go ahead and sign up, and you can see that too. And actually, if you, just as an aside, if you do sign up at the dynamicsale.com, one of the things you're going to get is an hour-long free webinar on internet marketing and how to use the autoresponder, which is what Mike said he's not going to have time to get into. So that'll be a great adjunct to what he's talking about right now.
Perfect. And I advise you hire an admin to set that up, because if you spend 2 hours trying to figure it out, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. I actually don't know how to do it, because it's really worth it for me to hand somebody $30 to get it done for me, and that way it gets done right. Yeah. What you're going to do if you log in while you're listening to this, you're going to get a quick reply. You're going to have to. It's going to say validate your email address, or validate that you requested this, and then within moments you're going to get this. And I'm doing nothing. People in Australia and in Asia and in Europe can do this in the middle of the night, instantly get kind of a report, because the reason you want to do this with an autoresponder versus doing it, well, we'll just collect it and they'll have our admin send it out, is when people request something, it's kind of like they're ADD in the moment. You want to get them the material within moments of them requesting it. So anyway, I don't want to get into, Neil and I could talk about this all day. But now again, you have that person to market to over and over and over again. See all the other benefits we just talked about. And I'm seeing now, I've been doing content. I started kind of getting into coaching 2006-07, studying a bunch of ways to market. Began content marketing in 2008, and people are saying, now again, when I said before, a long-term strategy. Again, I got a lot short to medium term, but I've been reading your stuff for years, Mike, and I think I'm ready now. And so I've been with them 3 times a month, other than that short period of time where it's inconsistent, for 5 years without me being physically present. And that's the advantage and the opportunity you guys have too. All right, 3 simple secrets to publishing great content. 1, publish great information. might seem obvious, but I really want to pause here because my fear for a lot of people is they're going to get it very, very heavy into promo mode, and you'll get a ton of spam and unsubscribes. The content must be useful and interesting, and many of you are at this webinar because you've been reading, either you got here through me promoting it or one of the other trainers promoting it, because you've been reading their content and where their reputation. Probably with some of us, we might even have that subject matter expertise as it relates to the delivering content. That's what's going to happen when your prospects get your emails. Will they read everyone? Absolutely not. But they see your email in their inbox 3 to 4 times a month as a constant reminder that you're out there and you're building your brand. And here's what's going to happen. When I've talked to some people and they've called me up after, or my other clients are going, oh my God, and they start to actually have seizures over doing things 3 to 4 times a month, let's just say once a week. I've tested this. If you're delivering great stuff, for example, I send out 16,000 articles, emails with an article, and I get about 10 unsubscribes every time I do it. And an unsubscribe, I'm never offended by it. Sometimes people just say, oh, Mike, I'm getting your stuff at 2 emails. I'm just panning down 1. Some people are clean email box freaks, and they don't want any kind of content. And frankly, if they're unsubscribing from me, they're never going to buy from me. My style doesn't resonate with them. And I think, I look at it as I'm successfully vetting the people out that would never work with me anyway, because, no one, I'm not going to get 100%. But if you're getting that kind of response rate, don't worry about opt-outs. And don't be so arrogant to think 3 times is too much, because they're going to open their email. They're going to go, oh my God, here's Mike's email. It's going to talk to me this week about how to hire better recruiters. Let me pause my day, get a cup of coffee. I've been waiting for this. No. My best clients will say, you know what, sometimes I get this and I just delete it because I don't have time. I do that stuff with the same stuff with people that I follow rapidly that give me great information. So the reason you send 3 out is hopefully 1 or 2 get read. You can send articles related to hiring, onboarding, new hires, leadership, productivity. You probably have more content in your head than you know. You can actually have your admin, or you can have somebody interview you on a bunch of different topics, and I'll give you a couple in a moment, and then have that transcribed. With things like Nuance, you can actually talk into your computer and have it written, and then, through some services I'll give you in a couple minutes, you can have them edit your articles, so you don't have to do it. And I'm going to even show you, and I don't even think you should write the articles, honestly. I'm going to show you a system using some outsourced resources that you don't have to do anything. So my challenge to you is do this. And if you like to write, great, do it. There's that avenue. And if not, I'm going to show you through some other services like Odesk and Elance how to find a blogger. Other things you can write about, like we talked about, case studies on successful recruiting processes. Share what you did that kept a deal from going south and how to make sure this doesn't happen to them. And it's also a great demo of your ability. So if you're talking about how you save something, the subtle promotion in there is your ability to do something other than just email over a resume and cash a check if they hire that resume. Next one. So here's some sample topics. 8 ways to attract the best talent in the industry, whatever your niche. 2, is the recruiter you're working with qualified to work your search? And you could have a checklist there. Here's things you should be asking your, what's your vetting process for the search firms you use? Most, by the way, is, well, it's the guy who approves my fee. So let them know, this is how you let them know that there's more to search than just the fee. And you can put together a checklist. 5 deadly mistakes companies in the XYZ industry, the banking industry, the mining industry, the technology industry make that cost them great talent. See, the topics and the headlines should be a little bit compelling, not how to hire better. I like putting things in there. I'm not saying misleading. I'm saying things that are going to captivate your interest, because with all the incoming stimulus we have every day, you've got to give them a reason to open the email. All right. Simple secret number 2, make publishing easy. Use email programs with templates. Do not use your Outlook, Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, whatever account you have, if you're at xyzsearch.com, you do not want that to be coming through that server. You don't want this stuff coming through, and I'm going to tell you why. It's going to get you in trouble quickly and could get your other emails, meaning setting appointments, things like that, blocked. When you're sending from a regular account, your ISP often will assume you're a spammer, and you have to manually remove people who request out. Part of this is when you use the right service, it's going to let them opt out easy. There are systems out there that manage this all you for probably about 50 to 150 bucks a month, depending on the size of your list. And when you do this, you're also going to want to do some homework on keywords that could trigger your email to be blocked as spam. But most of the providers I'm about to mention have spam check that you can run before sending the email. People like Constant Contact, Exact Target, there's Infusionsoft, Office Autopilot, a little more advanced than those two, that allow unsubscribe, give you bounce reports, let you know who opened the emails, let you know actually what time they open their emails, how often they open their emails, and that can create sub-marketing lists, because if you start, you can start pulling off lists off these places, going, knowing that people open the articles, you can start running reports if they open multiple times. It's probably somebody that's really following you, and you can market to them a little bit differently. I don't have time to get into that today, but the nice thing about these is they're real professional. They have great templates. You don't have to hire anyone. You can type right into these templates and look like a professional emailer going through Constant Contact. It doesn't go through your server, so the ISPs go, oh, this is Constant Contact, they're legitimate, or Infusionsoft, they're legitimate. We're not going to block most of these emails. Some emails always get blocked, but usually a small percentage.
Yeah, I actually use Aweber, which has great delivery. If you do want to check it out, they have a trial. I'm an affiliate with them, meaning if you sign up, I get a small amount of what you use, but I use them, so I stand behind them. But if you go to Neil, Neil marketing.com, it'll take you to their trial page. It's really great. But and Constant Contact, these are all great.
Yeah, Aweber is a great one too. Next, once you have your template, and again, do not use this from Outlook. It's oh God, it's so messy. Don't be cheap. 50, 75 bucks a month. Done. Outsource it. Elance, odesk.com. And because here's what I hear. Up to this point, you're probably going, this is a really great idea. I love it in theory, but Mike, I simply don't have the time to write 3 or 4 articles per month and run my desk. Understood. I don't recommend you write them, as I said before. I recommend you develop topics and hire a ghostwriter and have your admin configure the email in Constant Contact or whatever service you use. And you find ghostwriters at places like elance.com, odesk.com. Those are phenomenal places for outsourced services of any kind. But just to keep it here is you could, just like posting a job, I'm looking for a writer to write on HR topics like hiring, onboarding, leadership, productivity management, blah, 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 blah. And you'll pay these people per article. Depending on the person, it could be 25, 35, 40, 50, 60 bucks an article, or for a series of articles. And the nice thing is when you hire them as a ghostwriter, you get to own the content. And you get to be, you don't have to put their name on it. You paid them for it. A lot of biographies that look like autobiographies are written by somebody else who, Mr. Famous or Ms. Famous person hired this person to do their quote-unquote autobiography, and all they were was interviewed, and then the autobiographer wrote the whole book. Same thing here. You're going to say, here's 7 or 8 topics, and I gave you the few before, and write articles on these topics. And then just make sure you edit them and make sure that, because some of the people will be offshore, but they're generally highly educated people available, or college students available very inexpensively to get this done for you. Simple secret number 3, be consistent and be subtle in your promotion. Published at least twice monthly, ideally 3 times. And again, the big fear I hear is that you're going to overwhelm them with too much. Remember, they won't all be read. Studies show the minimum to be effective at about 2 times per month. Less than that, I wouldn't even bother. 1 time, maybe I'd bother with 1 time, but imagine if they're reading every third. That means they're really getting paid to once a quarter if you do it every month. Next, you will have opt-outs. Don't worry about them. As I said before, some will unsubscribe. It's part of the process, and it's to be expected. I see some people so obsessed with unsubscribes they fail to serve the market that will hire them by not being as frequent with them. Because that's what, well, Mike, if I send it too frequently, I'm going to get unsubscribes. And I think about all the people I unsubscribe from. They're people I don't buy from, and they're generally people I find annoying. So those two things is, if they find you annoying, they probably found you annoying before the emails. It doesn't mean that if you follow through with the other marketing things, again, with a clean Mr. or Ms. Clean inbox, doesn't mean you can't call them. Doesn't mean that your other marketing techniques that you're using are going to be ineffective. It just might mean this isn't the one for them. Add an intro with personal information and keep it short. 30, 40 words. If you notice, a lot of the emails come out there, they have a little bit of an intro, they have a body with an article, and then maybe a little promo piece, which we talked about. Maybe you could promote your placements or things like that. A couple of years ago, I was on summer vacation, and just to give you an example, and I hit a really nice drive, and I'm playing golf with one of my best friends, and there's one of those trees, and it was stuck in the middle of the fairway. And the shot I hit went down the middle of the fairway. We're walking around the fairway, and there was kind of a hill that obstructed our view from the tee box where this tree was. And my friend's like, and we can't find the ball. You're going to have to take a stroke. I'm like, I'm not taking a stroke. That freaking thing was hit beautifully. So looking around, there's a knot about 6 inches across, kind of in a tree, and the ball either bounced and landed there or landed there on the fly. And so I took a picture of it, and the debate I had with my friend was, he's like, you got to take the ball out of the tree. It's a stroke. Now, technically it's true, but when you're playing a friendly game. And part of my intro, I talked about our little debate, and then I kind of linked it to the article. I got dozens of replies about that picture. Now, I didn't get dozens of people saying, hire me as a coach, but what I'm doing with sending pictures like that is you're building relationship with your audience. They're getting to know you as a human being a little bit. I spoke at NAPS a little while ago and was talking about this topic. And people came up to me after and they go, yeah, Mike, I know this summer you were in Venice. There was a picture with you and your family and that your kids graduated. Didn't your daughter graduate high school and she's off to college and your son finished Little League? Now, these are people that I don't know that know all this stuff about me. I'm building rapport with them. When I did the email, I called it Sad Endings or New Beginnings, and I talked about kind of life in a recruiting firm in the article, but in the intro, I used the analogy of, is it a sad ending, meaning my daughter going off to college, or a fun new beginning, a new part of her life, my son finishing Little League and, coming off the small diamond going to the big diamond, and that kind of contrast. That was probably the highest response rate I ever get. Congratulations, your family looks great. So when I started doing this, I was taught this technique and I resisted it because I said, no, people just want ideas. They don't care about me. And again, you keep it short and you make it interesting and you add photos. And again, all those services that I talked about make it easy to upload those pictures, cut and paste them into the thing. So you want to, part of doing this is create a personal relationship. Like we talked about before, congratulate new hires with their permission, especially the senior level position. Make sure you add your social media links if you guys have a Facebook page for your business. Obviously, your LinkedIn networks, if you have Twitter, any of those, you want to have those links and that they can click on those to connect with you. Make it easy to get in touch with you. You can even offer every once in a while for a complimentary evaluation on your hiring process. Please reply to this email and we can set a time to see if, keyword, if we can show you one or two areas where you can improve your ability to attract great talent, whether you choose to use us or not. Think about it. Anyone that asks for an evaluation means there's something they're finding intriguing about you and they're giving you a shot. And you want to be clear, not like to see how our process can benefit you. No, that's scary. That's a sales call. This is to see if we can show you one or two areas where you can improve your ability to attract great talent, whether you choose to use us or not. Okay, so here's the goals. 1, get prospects calling you or emailing you back. 2, establish yourself as a niche and hiring expert. This is going to differentiate you from the other 87,000 recruiting professionals out there, because literally it's probably in the hundreds that do this. If, And I think I'm being even aggressive with that number. Next, after time, get higher fees when hired, because again, you've established yourself as a subject matter expert. Another goal is to promote the level of search you work. If you're constantly talking about the different types of positions you place, you can go all the way down to the staff line up to the VNC level, cover those types of positions, basically showing and demonstrating you're kind of a full-scale recruiter. And another one, to stay in touch and be remembered between phone calls. You will start hearing from your clients or prospects that you haven't heard from a while. Here's one of the things when people have started doing this, and they've called and told me, and they've said, Mike, we sent out a few emails, and some people haven't replied to our email, but we started getting calls from people we worked with like a year ago that we haven't heard from, and I found it's just picked up in the last couple of months. Well, they might not say, hey, Neil, I just got you. I've been reading your articles. I'm ready to hire you again. No, you've just come back into their life when they needed you. Okay, so if you're like a lot of people out there, and again going, I don't have time to do this, there is a solution. If you want it done for you, do you love the idea but you can't commit to doing 2 or 3 articles per month? Are you kind of a procrastinator that already has challenges planning and maintaining desk discipline? Well, keep listening. I've been teaching this concept to my best clients literally for years, and they love the idea. I really wanted them to put this in their business. I basically took them to the presentation that I gave you, even with a little bit more depth on kind of the step-by-step how to do it. Gave them tons of info, more even than I could, like I said, share with you in the hour we have together. The problem is they didn't have the time to hire the writer, or maybe the gumption, because they did have the time to hire the writer. Format the emails and be consistent. A bunch said at a meeting we had kind of last fall in Texas, they said, Mike, you know what, you've been talking about this. Obviously, we're not doing it. We think it's a great idea. You do it. We'll pay for it. So I put together the following program. It's working with my clients, and they're getting a lot more call-in openings, and several have clients email them back, took job orders, and even made a placement now that we've been doing this over the last probably 5-6 months. So here's what you get. We're going to, if this intrigues you, we're going to set up and pay for the email marketing service. We use Constant Contact. You don't have to be a subscriber for that. We have a person that sets up an account for you and does that. The value for that is about $150 a month. We're going to have articles written for you 3 times per month. What that means is, to make it inexpensive, what we do is we actually share the same article between a few different search firms, but no one in the same space. And what that means is you're not going to, no one in your niche, your market niche, is going to see the same article. So, we guarantee that. So one of the things we do when people enroll is we find out what your niche is, and we have a few different series of articles going out so that there's no duplication. And the value is up to $500 per month if you hired your own writer. We put the emails together for you, formatted, sent, nothing to do, even your intro. You don't have to do anything. Now, I advise you do your intros. Our project manager on this puts out a calendar, gives you deadlines, shows you what the articles are, so you can write 25 or 30 words. But even if you don't write the 25 or 30 words, you're away on vacation, you're caught up in a bunch of deals, we have a standard intro that connects you and your firm to the article. And again, you don't have to touch anything. And the value for that is about $300 a month. We monitor your email lists, and we update it for bounces, and we send you reports like I talked about before. We'll send you reports, who opened it, who bounced. One, if they're bounced emails, you can clean up your own email list internally. All you have to do is upload your list, send an Excel spreadsheet of kind of name and email address. You can take that out of your database, things like that, and we'll upload that. And it should be people you've actively worked with, inside the last year or so. Don't pull out 10-year-old email addresses. It's going to kill your email account. Again, whether you use us or not, you don't want to use ancient email addresses. And the value for that is about $125 a month. So total value is about $1,075 a month. If you did this for a year, you're going to get several email or call-in job orders, and you will make at least one placement in that year. An average fee of $18,000. This program would pay for itself, kind of 4 to 5 to 1. if whether you use me or not, if you can send this out 3 times a month, and the list is substantial enough, meaning you have probably, a few hundred emails or more, and you can go into the thousands. That's not a problem. We allow for the investment we offer up to 20,000 emails, so email addresses. But there's no way you can do this and not make at least one more placement. And it's like getting all the other stuff, the branding, the subject matter expertise, the raise fees for free. So we have a one-time setup. We upload your list value, $75. We'll give you several templates to choose from to pick the one that kind of matches the closest to look and feel to your branding. That's about a $100 value. We set up and load your format, work with the template you pick, with your logo, your headshots, any pictures you want to put in there. And you can, again, in the intro, if you want to put different pictures in there every week, work with a project manager. That's all included. Value of that is about $300. We set up all your social media links, so you don't have to know how to do that. We'll put your LinkedIn, your Facebook, Twitter, whatever else you have. Value is about $125. So the setup fee would be $625. So when you look at this, you see the total monthly investment. It's not going to be that much, $1,075 in the setup fees. Because you're on this webinar with Neil, and we're going to take a small batch of people, we can probably afford to take about 13 right now. We did a batch back in the early summer. And because this isn't a full-time gig for me, and I have a project manager that does this to maintain the quality standards and the quantity articles, we can probably take on about 13 or 14 people. And the investment's only $597 per month. And through Friday, no, I forgot when Neil was doing this, so we'll give you a week from the end of the summit, or number 13 or 14, we'll cap it out. The investment's only $397. So you can visit the recruiteru.com/content marketing. That's the recruiteru.com/content marketing. And there's some of these details up there, kind of what you can get, what you expect, and you can enroll right there. And you'll see that we've discounted it to $397 for the next few days. In addition, for about a week, we're waiving the setup fees, so those will be free. So that, again, the recruiteru.com/content marketing. And we also have a strict limit of 3 firms per desk specialty, because we have about 5 article series, and I don't have the bandwidth to bring on an author. This honestly is a little side business that's kind of blossomed for me, because my clients were too, all right, I'll say it, lazy to do this on their own. And actually, it's at this investment price, it makes sense for them to do it simply because they can focus on their time and energy on developing clients that are going to pay them great fees. If you have any specific questions that I haven't answered here, if you reach out to me at info@therecruiteru.com, I can probably, or one of my team members can probably have a brief 5-minute chat to go over the details. I think I've covered most of the intimate ones. Oh, we do require the big one that has come up in the past, just a 5-month commitment, because this is a medium-term strategy to see results. So I don't want somebody getting into this for a month, us going through all the setup, and then going, well, after I'm not seeing a lot of results. You're not going to see a lot of results after the first month. If you do, that's gravy. And again, whether you choose to use me or not, no, this is a 3, 4, 5-month strategy. So that's why after 5 months, it becomes month to month. The fee does not go up. You're locked into this investment price. It does go up to $597. So 5 months, just with 30 days notice, you can cancel whenever you want. It becomes a month-to-month, no long-term obligation type program. And again, if you have any questions, email me at info@therecruiteru.com. Put in a phone number and a time we can get a hold of you, or and we'll get in touch. And in summary, again, whether you choose to use me or not, kind of even in that, when I went through the investment, those are the things you're going to want to be doing on your own to make this effective. Put something in your calendar if you're going to do this on your own, because I gave you all the steps, and jump right in, because I'm just guessing, knowing the market, Neil's probably got a few hundred, if not 1,000 people on this call, that more than likely 980 of you aren't going to do anything. Maybe you found this entertaining, and hopefully I was a little bit funny. I'm not as funny as Neil, but Neil, I want to thank you for the time. and for inviting me again, and thanks you all for spending your attention. My coaching hat on is pick something, get started, implement it inside the next week. Thanks.
All right, awesome, Mike. And I got to say, this is a great service. I didn't know, of course, until we went through the slides that Mike was going to be offering this. And my free internet marketing webinar, that if you can't wait, I mean, do sign up at thedynamicsale.com. If you can't wait, email me and I'll send you a link to the webinar. Every time, and I talk about that live a lot too. And just like Mike, I get people saying, will you do this for me? You know, I don't even know where to start. And I don't, and I can't, and I, don't have the bandwidth or time. So that the fact that this is turnkey like this is awesome, and it's fabulous, and it works great. So, okay, thanks everybody, and we will see you again soon. Mike, thanks again, bud.
Thank you, guys.